Hello, friends. Welcome to today's discussion. Today, we are going to discuss a very famous text written by a very renowned dramatist in English language and literature, that is by G.B.Shaw. The title of his essay is Spoken English, Broken English. In this lesson, we are going to discuss the different facets of the essay, that is spoken English and broken English. So let's start. First of all, let's have an introduction about the author, that is George Bernard Shaw. We know that Shaw was from Ireland. He was a dramatist, a literary critic, and he won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1925 and the Oscar for the Best Screenplay in 1938. Apart from being a dramatist, he was also an excellent public speaker, and in his speeches and talks, he dealt with contemporary moral and social problems. As far as spoken English and broken English is concerned, it is nothing but a transcript of a radio talk and was recorded in 1927. The talk was broadcast over Manhattan's radio station, and it was a part of series of talks called A Treasure of the Spoken Word. And in this talk, G.B.Shaw proposes his views that even educated native speakers cannot speak perfectly correct English, and spoken English is more acceptable in day-to-day life than perfectly correct English. So, in this text, G.B.Shaw discusses the concepts of correct English, that is, spoken English and broken English. And we are quite surprised by the views of G.B.Shaw that there is no such thing as ideally correct English. And the talk is especially for those who are foreign students and wish to study in some English speaking country, or native speakers who speak dialect rather than standard English. G.B.Shaw assumes that his listeners wish to learn correct English, and we also have a very strong desire to learn correct English. However, he says there is no such thing as ideally correct English because no two British subjects speak English in the same way, that is, speak English alike. So, as far as his views are concerned, he tells us that correct English is nothing but a myth. Shaw tells us that there are two types of English speakers. One is native speaker and next is foreign speaker. And both of them want to speak correct English, isn't it? Shaw is very firm that there is no such thing as ideally correct English. And he gives many justifications also. No two British persons speak exactly alike, and Shaw says that English is the mother tongue of the Britishers, but still no two British persons speak exactly alike. Though English is the mother tongue of England, all the people of England don't speak English language with the same style. So we should not bother about talking correct or incorrect English. There are different local varieties of English language in England, like Cockney English. Shaw gives his own example for justification. He tells us that Shaw, as he himself was a member of a committee established by the British Broadcasting Corporation, and Shaw and his team had a purpose of deciding how the utterances of speakers employed by the corporation should be pronounced. That's it. Model of correct English speech for the British Islands. Shaw tells us further that the committee members working with him were from different backgrounds like Irish, Scottish, Welsh, Oxford University, and American. And the team of G.B.Shaw was asked to prepare a model for correct English. But we are surprised that Shaw exposes that the members of the committee do not agree as to the pronunciation of the simplest and commonest words like yes and no. No two members of the committee pronounce them exactly alike, and that is quite surprising, isn't it? And Shaw tells us the reason, and he tells us that the members differ according to the country in which they were born. So, Shaw confidently tells us, advises, it is nonsense to say that they all speak correctly. So, it is the bottom line, that is, there is no such thing as ideally correct English. Shaw tells us that he himself do not speak the same way all the time, and nobody does actually. He gives us some example. He tells us that talking with the audience who listen him carefully, putting notes on paper, he would speak carefully, as we do. And if I speak to my wife at home carefully, as I am speaking now, she would think I am going mad. So, Shaw tells us that there are two types of using language. One is company manners, that is careful use of language, and in other words we can call it as formal way of communication. And the second is home manners, that is careless use of language, and it is an informal way of communication. Shaw advises that if you are happen to London, do not speak correct English. It is quite surprising that in England 99.99% people speak bad English. So we should not insist on using correct English grammatically, right? And Shaw tells us that if you are a foreigner and if you use correct English in England, in London, no Englishman would help you. And on the other hand, if you use spoken English as broken English, if you use incorrect English, everyone would help you. For example, will you have the goodness, sir, to direct me to the railway terminus at Charing Cross? Pronouncing all the vowels and consonants beautifully, the person will not understand you and will suspect you of being a beggar, a confidence trickster. Please, Charing Cross, which way? Half a dozen people will immediately overwhelm with directions. So,